Welcome to the Metal Pit.
All right. G'day, everyone. I'm Brett from ParMetal Media, and here with me today to talk about the importance of art in metal is the one and only Dan Goldsworthy. How you going, mate?
Good evening or good morning. Well, it's evening your time, morning my time. Yeah, I'm
Certainly
doing
is,
great.
mate. Yeah, we're hitting about 8 o'clock now. So yeah, it's been a bit of a rainy day actually. I was hoping the wind wasn't going to put off anything, but yeah, it's looking good.
I mean, this is the opposite way around. Well, people can maybe tell from my accent, I'm in the UK, but I live in the north of Scotland, and we are currently experiencing an Australian summer.
Yeah, so I've heard.
I mean, I guess obviously you're at the opposite time of your year, but it's absolutely melting over here. So, yeah, you'd have
How
thought
many
if there was a
degrees is
rain.
it there?
What's that? Sorry?
How many degrees is it there?
Oh, I mean, admittedly, it hit 28 to 31 centigrade. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, a while back. But I think at the moment it doesn't sound much, but it's sitting in the early 20s, which for us, like early to mid 20s, which just feels like, we're not really over
Yeah.
here. But I don't mean to complain because I mean, like, classic British thing is like complaining about the weather, regardless of what it's like.
You know,
I'm not going to.
my grandparents they used to have their sisters and brothers and all that come over during the Australian summers, and they would go touring, just go all around for about a month in Australian summer back in Christmas times back in the 80s, and they'd love it. They'd absolutely love it, but it always get to like 40 odd degrees, and they would just be like just melting with sweat. It was yeah, yeah.
You
But
need air swimming pool or whatever really to deal with that.
oh, you need the lot, absolutely everything.
We're
Um,
not anyway.
sorry, buddy. Yeah, sorry, just to get off point. So basically, we're here today just to have a chat about the importance of art in metal and I guess what art brings to the metal genre in particular. You've done so many album covers. I dare not ask you to have a guess how many you've done. Um, what's your view on the importance of metal, art in metal?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I suppose it's what got me into it. My dad always grew up on rock or brought me up on rock music. So, Deep Purple, Sabbath, Zeppelin, Floyd type stuff. So it was always in my household. But I distinctly remember the moment in time for me was when I saw, and I'm sure the same for you and so many other people, I saw Eddie from Iron Maiden. And the first one I saw was Peace of Mind. And it would have been about 1991, I think, because Be Quick or Be Dead was out at the time and did quite well in the charts. And one of my friends in my class, his older brother, drew the cover for Peace of Mind, an earlier album. And I was like, whatever this is brilliant. And this is what I want. And, I bought a Guns N' Roses cassette around 91, but then my first proper, like, go into a shop when I was on holiday in America, funny enough, was like, I said to my dad, I was like, I want an Iron Maiden album. I want an Iron Maiden album. Don't really care what it is. And just chose the one with the best cover, which was Killers. And for me at that time that I could find, and from then onwards, I mean, sorry, there is better Iron Maiden album covers, but the ones that were available, probably a mixture of cost and cool cover was like, I want that one. And that's what got me into it. So realistically, I mean, you can either answer this question by taking an hour or like 1 second, but answer is extremely important because I think that is your gateway into it. To almost choose a kind of slightly crass analogy, it's like if you meet a woman or a man or whatever, like looks isn't the most important thing about it, but what kind of gets you in there with something. And it's like back in the day when you had to couldn't just listen to everything. You go, well, what do I like the look of? This is the one that like appeals to me most from that point of view. And then sometimes it's not great, but other times it's amazing. And I think that's almost, it's the same with your partner as well or whatever. It's like it's not the be all and end all, but it's certainly the thing that gets you into it. And super important back in the day, and it's super important now, just as a gateway. And also all the special albums that I can think of in my life have got both good music and good artwork. It's very rare for you to have that album that just like speaks to your soul that has brilliant music, but the cover's a load of shit. So,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, it,
No, I totally get it. I was the same. Somewhere in time in 1986 when that came out, I was 12 and I looked at that cover and I said, I've got to have it. And I didn't even know metal. I think the first dose of metal I ever got was over a mate's place. He had an older brother who loved Slayer at the time. And I remember being a little bit scared, thinking, "Oh shit, this is quite heavy. It's a lot heavier to what you hear on the radio." And then come, yeah, 12 years old, I see the Summer in Time cover, and I just again grabbed it. I had a mate. I was talking to a mate today, and he said the same thing. It was Power Slave for him that got him. So Iron Maiden itself, Iron Maiden. Uh, I think had so many, probably kickstarted so many metal lifelong loves, I think, just simply from their covers and the music that was inside eventually. Obviously, you'd get into that. I mean, Live After Death was, again, another one of those covers that I would just search through and look at everything. And yeah, it was like you say, it's kind of it's the chicken and the egg type thing, really, isn't it? Like what comes first?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Iron Maiden is the best place to start in any conversation
Oh,
about
sure.
metal and artwork. And I'm exactly the same with you. And on Somewhere in Time and Power Slave, if you had to put a gun to my head and say which is the best Iron Maiden cover, I think Power Slave is so successful in terms of it makes that whole album feel like this Egyptian mystical vibe, even though there really is only one song, the title
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
actually about, but it's so powerful in one terms of what it does that it just sucks you into a world. Whereas Somewhere in Time for me, which is my personal favorite album and Maiden album cover art,
yeah,
and much like you, that was the one that I got, and I just stared at it for ages. And I think there's something about the fact that it's got that Blade Runner vibe to it,
yeah,
which was I only got it in the mid 90s. I probably got Somewhere in Time in 94. Like, so I wasn't, but I still grew up on 80s things.
yeah,
So that having like been aware of the Terminators and RoboCops and Blade Runners of this world, there was something about that retro sci-fi art that just completely sucked me in. And
yeah,
then when you go and look at all the little Easter eggs, I can still remember all the name of like the Aces High Bar and the sort of
yeah,
references to Ancient Mariner and even the sort of the football slash soccer like scores featuring like West Ham like West Ham 7 Arsenal 3 or something along
yeah.
those lines with
Acacia
Maiden for
Avenue was up there. Yeah,
me. And those are and that's I mean that is solely the reason why I put so many Easter eggs in my art. And I think if people are aware of my stuff or anything, or if I get asked for anything in particular, it's to put lots of Easter eggs and stuff because I've just always done that. Even way before I was doing album covers for a living, even when I studied architecture in uni, and in my architecture coursework, I put like references to the A-Team vans and the Back to the Future vans, or my tutors as silhouettes in all my drawings, just because it made me laugh and it amused me and it gave me satisfaction. And I think you can only get into this as a career if you genuinely love it and get a sense of enjoyment and fun out of it. And
oh, for
this is
sure.
that's how I ended up transitioning from a proper job to like, drawing zombies and stuff all day.
Oh man, it's fantastic. I had another look. I mean, I've had several looks over your work over the last man, probably since Coffin Feeder. I've really studied some of the bands that you've done art for, and like that Coffin Feeder one absolutely got me like head over heels. I looked at it and I thought to myself. That is a poster that I want on my wall. You know what I mean? And that one and the over the top poster that you did for Coffin Feeder as well, which just had more references and more death in it, obviously. Those sorts of things, they're so, like you say, they probably come natural to you, I guess, like because you love it so much, those little details.
Yeah, I mean, like with everything that you do that stuff because you
Welcome to the Metal Pit.
love it. And especially with Sven, the singer from Aborted and Coffin Feeder, he's a few years older than me, but we grew up on exactly the same stuff in terms of the same music, the same art, the same horror and action films of the 80s and 90s. Doing stuff like that is just almost one big fun sort of collaboration of coming up with ideas and just chucking all of the things from the movies that we love or bands that we love into one big melting pot. And yeah, it brings us a lot of satisfaction. Occasionally, sort of, you do get the whole, well, you should be expecting to hear from Arnold Schwarzenegger's lawyers. It's like, I think they've got bigger fish to fry than a small Belgian sort of a death metal band. But it's super good fun to do all that, and it kind of it means I also get to have the enjoyment of working with music I love, and also kind of the film aesthetic that I
Yeah.
love, and actors I love, and stories that I love as well. And I've done a few like that, and I've got an album coming out soon for a band they're from America called Bonginator, which is sort of like a synth death metal band, and that's another really heavy referenced one with about like it's the sort of thing where if you are about 40, give or take 5-10 years, it's just everything from your childhood, probably 40 to 50 now,
Yeah.
sadly, given the 80s is
Oh,
close.
I know
Yeah.
I'm 51 now, so it seems to have gone by so damn quick. How many jobs do you have on the go at any given time? Do you just take one at a time, or is there more?
It's a lot more than that. I've probably got any 5 to 25 on the go at a time, which is pretty daunting. At the moment, I'm probably down to five because one of my aims for this year was just to whittle it back because I'd look at my to-do list and it was, I don't really suffer from burnout, but my life is pretty much, if I'm not looking after my kids, I'm just like working, 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 just
Yeah.
because it's one of those jobs where I do feel like I feel very lucky to be able to do it with the rise of AI and other things. It's limiting jobs for certain people in my field, and I feel like you can't really stop when you get going. And as soon as you start turning down clients, especially ones that have given you lots of work before, then they might find somebody better or different or cheaper, or it doesn't really matter, and you might not get asked back. So for me, over the years, the most successful clients I've had are the ones that you just keep working for all the time. So I always say yes to them naturally. But so it's newer clients I've had to cut down on, and I've had to like I've went through probably between February and May just turning down a job or so every day, whereas previously for the first few years I'd be accepting everything because you enjoy it, and you just never I mean I never thought it would be an actual career to do this. It was never, I mean, it's my dream job, but I never even dreamed of going into it. It just happened by accident through turning a sort of a silly bunch of jokes 15 years ago into a bit of local band art, and then you do one job and then you get the next job and then you get the next job, and all of a sudden you find yourself going, hang on a minute, this is almost a career here, and then it just snowballs. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean my last year, very quickly, I did about 90 jobs in a year. 30 of them were probably like serious bits of art, and then the other 60 were maybe smaller jobs or like still related to it, but probably turn about 30 to 40 big bits of art a year, which is, now I
Amazing.
say it, that's insane because that's like, a piece every 10 days or something, just
Yeah.
working relentless.
Do you ever get say the artist's equivalent of writer's block?
I find it's more a case of some days I wake up and think, oh, I'm really rubbish at art. And I know other artists struggle with this as well. And you get it's more like you hit something that's difficult to do. Whereas I'm not always coming up with concepts. In fact, most of them, I go to a band and say, I don't really like a blank slate. It's like if you give me a guitar and say, write a metal riff, I'm going to default to playing like Metallica or Megadeth stuff that I
Yeah.
grew up on. Somebody says, oh, go and try and write some sort of ambient black metal thing. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily do that, but at least makes you think outside the box and outside your parameters of what you love. And I'm the same with art. So if somebody says, just come up with anything, it's almost like option paralysis where you go, I don't know what to do. I'll probably just end up doing something generic that I like. So if they come to me and say, I've got this big, weird concept, I love that because it's personal to them. And then it's like I'm working with somebody else's ideas. And then normally at the end, everybody's happy. Whereas there are a few artists out there who are very much so, no, I'm going to draw what I like and you are going to have this.
Yeah.
And I never, I mean, the collaboration for me is half the fun, and turning somebody else's concept into your style and hopefully having a shared enjoyment of that along the way. That's always the best process. So I wouldn't say I suffer from writer's block as opposed to, yeah, just thinking that I'm not very good some days, but other days you look at stuff and go, "Oh, this is brilliant. We've turned around loads," and you make progress, and you always push through those walls. It's just that's the hardest thing for me personally is when you get stuck on.
Yeah, I get a bit the same way. Writing reviews. Sometimes you tend to write the same thing every now and then, and you want to try and break out of that. It's not something that you want to do. Do you get to meet many of the bands that you work for? Obviously, you get some ideas that come from them. Do you get to talk to them before you write it, start drawing anything down, or listen to the albums or anything like that?
Yeah, so I've depending on where they're from. I mean, I've met a lot of the bands that I've worked with over the years at gigs. So typically, if any bands that I have worked with come up and play anywhere in Scotland, I'll go and see them and hopefully meet them if I can. But in terms of beforehand, one or two bands I've occasionally had a Zoom call with, but usually it's just done via email correspondence or Instagram messaging or Facebook Messenger, any one of the social media ones. I prefer email because I always forget stuff and it's easier to like just search for something and find what we refer to. Because typically what happens is a band will come in and go, "Hey Dan, can you do this?" Big long brief, loads of reference material, attached band logos, and then we book it in for 4 months down the line, and then it gets to 4 months, and I've forgotten that the job exists until I get a little reminder saying, "Come in," and then it's like, "What was the concept about?" Because I'm thinking about the ones that I'm working with at that particular time, not jobs for 4 months down the line. So if I've got it in email, I can always refer to it later. But we always have a pretty good back and forth in terms of discussing ideas, and it's not very often, but if every now and again there's just something I don't feel is right or we should push in a different direction, I'll flag it. But most of the time I let the band just have their say and we just chat a little bit by email.
Yeah. Do you have a personal favorite at all that you've done?
Yeah, I've got a few. I suppose one of the ones I suppose that means the most to me was the album Fauna that I did for the band Haken, who were they're now friends of mine, but they were my favorite like modern band. They're like the UK's Dream Theater, amazing prog metal band. I don't know if you're familiar with Caligula's Horse at all, the Aussie sort of
Yeah.
prog metal band. It's
Yeah.
within that similar sort of band, and I absolutely love them. Because they combine every single sort of genre of prog that I like from the sort of the 70s Rush and Yes and Genesis through to like Opeth and Periphery and Tool and Dream Theater and all that. Anyway, so I did that album cover, and it's not necessarily typical of my work, but it was one of the few covers that I look at and go, I don't see something wrong with it. And it got really well. I mean, it won like a prog metal album cover of the year on the prog report, I don't know, despite it being completely different to everything else I do, maybe that's why I quite like it in the sense that it's, I've done lots of covers that look kind of similar in the sense that they've got apocalyptic, colorful skies and
Yeah.
zombies or thrash dudes and bullet belts or references to X, Y, and Z. But that one is just a really weird prog cover for my favorite band.
Yeah.
So that one would probably top the list. I do like the stuff I've done with Coffin Feeder because it was so much fun to work on. Um, and I'm trying to think. It's a weird thing, isn't it? It's the difference between ones that mean a lot to you personally versus ones that you think are objectively good bits of art. And normally by the end of any album cover, I kind of hate what I've done anyway because I've just looked at it for 60 hours, 100 hours, 200 hours in some sense. But normally if I can come back to something 2 years later and go, actually, that's all right. I quite like it. Whereas I've got ones that like it meant a lot to me personally. I did the solo album cover for Corpse Grinder, who is, one of my favorite death metal singers of all time, because Cannibal Corpse are legends.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things that I wish I'd have done slightly differently from a kind of technical point of view, but it means a lot to me on an emotional point of view, given Cannibal Corpse were pretty much like my gateway into extreme metal
Yeah.
30 plus years ago. So yeah, a few.
Yeah. What's the process from go to why? You just have a list of stuff that long that you need to do, and you just the ideas start bubbling around, or yeah, what's your process?
It normally starts, let's say there's a pretty strong, we'll always nail down the concept first with the band. That's the main thing. There's no point just totally winging it. I did used to a little bit more in my earlier days, but these days, I'll do a rough sketch first, that's like pretty loose, but will just be anywhere from 10 minutes to half a day's work, depending on how complicated, just to kind of go, is this the rough composition and concept that you want? If I'm dead certain that I know exactly what they want, either because it's simple or it's going to be too and it just needs proper planning from the start, I'll go straight in with a kind of more detailed sketch. But by and large, I get the rough sketch down. If that gets approved, I'll then go over it with a tighter sketch. Because I found that in the days when I would just try and blag it a little bit more, it would always lead to more errors farther down the line than I wish. So if I try to get a solid sketch in from the start, that helps. And then it's just a rendering process. And all my stuff is painted digitally these days. I grew up doing art in school traditionally, such was those days. But, I work almost exclusively on my iPad and my Mac, which is just unbelievably convenient because, these days as well, rather than sitting or standing all down, kind of lying on the couch, either listening to music or watching TV, like burning through the amount of series is because I can just have them on in the background because it doesn't distract me, just working away. And happy as anything doing that. But then it's honestly just a case of once the sketch is done, then do about 60 plus hours of rendering and then maybe check in with the band at about the 80% mark to go, is this all right? And then hopefully they go, yes, at which point I'll crack on and finish it. Because the last 5 to 10% always takes like 20 to 50%. So and there's no point in rendering out those fine details and all the silly stuff that nobody would ever see if they're not content with how it is at that point. But that's a rare case for them to go, no, I just don't like that. Because if it gets the approval by the sketch stage, it should be fine once it gets colored, where it all looks way better.
Yeah, yeah. I was going to ask you, just going back to Coffin Feeder, the Steven Seagal heads. I've always had a very big interest in this since I first saw them lying all over the floor on the Coffin Feeder album cover. And then when it finally came out, they were changed to like the half Terminator, half Steven Seagal. Was that a lawyer's thing, like you said before, like an Arnold Schwarzenegger's going to come and get you?
It was the distributor, I think I can say this, the distributor who puts out the record. So not the actual record label itself, but the people that would put it online and get it in the shops. They were like, you can't do this cover. You just like that was basically it. And Sven and I had a week of panic where we had everything from do we change the whole thing? Do we change some of it? How much do we censor it? But we eventually came up with a compromise, which was the outer disc, the outer CD packaging is effectively in a slipcase that is very heavily censored. But if you take that off, you get the real cover. But as far as the Steven Seagal thing goes, if I could at least just give a small backstory of why it's Steven Seagal is like
Oh, yeah.
there was meant to be nothing political about that cover whatsoever in terms of the presidents getting killed. It was simply a case of the brief was originally, let's have Biden and Trump, both presidents, dead in the Oval Office with loads of TV characters coming to like shoot them all up. There's no good, there's no bad. It's just, it's almost like the most basic plot of an action film that probably doesn't exist. It sounds like it should. There was no sort of way on it.
Yeah.
But as we didn't want it to be political because the whole point of it, it's a bit of the world's a bit of an interesting place at the moment.
Yeah.
But so we sort of changed it. And then we kind of removed one of the presidents. And there is a generic Trump-like looking president there. But we were like, well, we don't want it to be actually definitely him. So we changed it to a They Live alien character from the film They Live.
Yep.
The basic premise, when it was going to be more real presidents, the idea was like, who would be the worst Secret Service to ever have ever? And it would be, or jokingly, let's do this ironically, who would be the best Secret Service to ever have? And it would be like, not just one Steven Seagal, but a whole sea of Steven Seagal. I mean, I don't want to sort of shit on anybody, but of all the people out there, that is a bit of a laughing stock. If you've ever seen his like Bullshido, what is it? I can't remember what martial art. Yeah, and him sort of like out of breath, like whilst he touches someone on the shoulder and they do a backflip video. It's just absolutely comical.
Yeah. Much like his movies.
Yeah, exactly like that. And so because he's sort of a bit of a joke, we just thought it'd be like because most of the other people in there, they're not being we're not punching up or punching down or making jokes about any of the other characters, even the dead president, even the president and Arnie and Skeletor and all of these people, we're not laughing at them. They're just there in existence. But with him, it was more of this like an ironic thing where he's just such a kind of clown of a character. It would be really funny to make him, um, yeah, the Secret Service. But when the distributors basically said, you can't do this, we were like, well, what can't we do? What's the problem? And they started off by saying, well, oh, you can't do all these famous actors in it. And then after a while, they realized, well, no, they didn't have a problem with that. And then after that, it was like, well, we don't want it to be in the Oval Office because it's because of the storming of the Oval. And it was like, well, it wasn't this. No one stormed the Oval Office. It was the storming of the Capitol building that is nothing to do with this. It's like,
Yeah.
this is just the Oval Office. There's no political left or right leaning. It's just a scenario. And then they were like, well, Steven Seagal. So eventually that was the one thing that we actually had to change. And they thought, we can't have his likeness because it's offensive to him or something. So we're like, well, what's the one thing that could make Steven Seagal even better? And like, if he was a Terminator Steven Seagal. And so that's a very long way of, so, this is the kind of fun that we'd have when coming up with it and just try to find solutions to certain issues.
Yeah.
But so yeah, effectively that was censorship. And the cover still works okay with him. I don't necessarily know which one I prefer. And I'm fine with not knowing that. And if people have preferences either way, great. But I can at least look at it and go, because I was a bit heartbroken at one stage when we had to change him, especially as I spent so long drawing loads of these little Steven Seagal heads, which was
Yeah.
great fun. And,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and I thought when I drew that, I made him more of a ridiculous, large character than he actually was. And then like a year or so down the line after I'd done that cover, it comes out he's on the front line in Russia looking even bigger and more globular and ridiculous than I'd actually made him. And I thought, this is one of those things where you try and parody somebody and
Yeah.
they themselves in reality are more of a parody than the way that you've actually caricatured them.
He's one of those people, isn't he? He just he started off so well. I loved those, late 80s, early 90s movies, Hard to Kill, all those back in the day. They used to be a staple back then, but yeah, nowadays he's just a joke of what he used to be. You can't watch a movie of his nowadays. It's quite hysterical to see the way he's come out.
Absolutely. And there's plenty of other, well, it's not necessarily a case for the public, but there's plenty of other stories about him as a character, sort of beyond just the, acting and the sort of taekwondo fake Aikido, I think it is, like the fake martial art videos. And he's probably the only one of those that I can think of off the top of my head, of those classic action stars with the Stallones and Van Dammes and Arnie and Dolph Lundgren characters that has just become kind of a clown figure as opposed to, still well respected. And
Yeah.
because even the worst Van Damme movies that because you don't look at them as being bad because they're bad movies. They were just like his lower budget straight to DVD ones because he did so many, or straight to videos, sort of garage forecourt type videos. But he still did so many other good movies that you look back on all of those characters really fondly, even their kind of lesser material. But yeah, he's definitely one whose your opinions of him sort of change over time, I think.
Yeah, it's a bit like it's an unfortunate sort of Bruce Willis story as well. He made so many good movies, and then all of a sudden, in his last few years, they're making movies. He just made so much tripe that yeah, it kind of doesn't ruin his legacy so as much as it just kind of brings it down a little bit.
A little bit, yeah. But at
Yeah,
least as far as I'm aware, at least that's only on the sort of film level as opposed to all the kind of as a ridiculous character outside of the film world.
yeah, yeah. What have you got going on at the moment? Do you have anything in the works? Well, obviously you do. You've got a few things happening.
Yeah. So at the moment, I'm just finishing up a cover of the third album for Pizza Death, the thrash crossover Melbourne-based band, who I think probably the sixth Aussie band that I've worked with in recent years. I've had quite a few from over your way, admittedly, it's a big area, but and then I've got an Australian tour poster for Archspire, another T-shirt for Archspire.
Yeah.
what do I have on the list on the go at the moment? I'm trying to think. I've just done a bunch of t-shirts for a German power metal band called Victorious that I handed in yesterday, and a UK thrash band called Must Kill, who are really good, like young guys, really underrated.
Yep.
Um, and then I could check my job list, but I know I've got like a bunch more to do after this.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm just trying to think of a Chimera Christmas poster, which
I saw that the other day.
that was something else for Chimera, but this is something that's in the works for to do a poster for their Christmas show, which and I love Chimera. They were like the 2000s, like because music changed a lot between 80s and 90s and 2000s. But
Sure
for me,
did.
they were like, oh, they were one of my favorites from that like early to mid 2000s period. So to work with them many years later is quite an honor, and I get on really well with them. They're lovely guys, and they always send whatever t-shirt I do. They don't even have to ask; they just send it in the post, which is always really nice. And
Yeah. Yeah, that
so I'm
that self-titled album was brilliant. The Impossibility of Reason, another brilliant album back in the day. I was just a fantastic band. Do you have any bands that you'd love to work with that you haven't yet?
Yeah, there's quite a few, I suppose. Some of them are obviously a bit untouchable in the sense that I'd love to work with Metallica, but who wouldn't? And also, they're not even necessarily a band that would my sort of. There's plenty of people that can do more suited art for Metallica better than I could. And I'd love to do something like a t-shirt for Obituary. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah,
Because always loved that. It's one probably my favorite logo. I love their album covers. I love the band. I know Terry, the bass player from Obituary, so there's possibly at least an avenue. I don't want to say, oh, I could get that, but there's at least a way that it might feasibly happen. Whereas, like the obvious two answers would be something for Megadeth or Maiden, because
mm,
they the Megadeth covers and the Iron Maiden covers were what completely got me into metal. But those are probably pipe dreams. I wouldn't say never, but at the same time, I'm not sort of expecting a call anytime soon.
Megadeth
Um,
have just finished the recording, haven't they?
yeah, and I'll be interested to see who's done the cover because they've gone down that sort of CGI route for like their last bunch of stuff, but they haven't really and they had a couple of artworky covers in the mid 2000s, but I'd love for them to go back to the sort of replica style, Rust in
Yeah,
Peace, Peace Cells type things because they're so iconic.
they just drag
And
you in. Oh,
it's my favorite stuff in the world, really. Like all the B-sides art for like Holy Wars and Hangar 18. It's just the best.
yeah,
Um, but I'm trying to think of who else would be reasonable. I've been lucky enough to work with so many of the bands that I really like, and even if it's not, say, Cannibal Corpse, I've managed to work with. They'd be on my bucket list, but I've worked with Corpse Grinder and I've spoken to Paul from Cannibal. So I think probably, yeah, I'd love to do something for Obituary. I mean, I could obviously list off my favorite bands that have exist, like, oh yeah, Testament and stuff. But it's like, well, Eliran Kantor is one of the best artists in the world. He does all their covers and rightfully so. So, and like Vince Locke does all the Cannibal stuff. So there's certain bands that would just be completely off, as far as I'm concerned, off the radar. But
yeah.
um, yeah, probably Obituary. It's one of those ones that I've been asked that a load, and I think it's quite good that I can't think of an answer because Sepultura would have been on my list, but I've worked with them and I've worked with some of my favorite IP of theirs of all time, which is just brilliant. And although I've not worked with like Death would be one as well, but Chuck Schuldiner died however many years ago, so
Many years
I've
ago.
worked. Yeah, and I've worked with the kind of death adjacent stuff, and almost every at
The
some
left,
point in
was that the Left to Die stuff? Yeah,
yeah, the Left to Die stuff, but then through that, probably almost I've done a release that's featured almost every member of, no, not that's a lie, but like at least half the members of Death over the years. So because they've appeared on other recordings that I've done, whether it's James Murphy and Bobby Crelble and Steve DiGiorgio as well. So stuff like that. But I think just any of the classic thrash or death bands would be just
yeah.
great to work. Really.
Actually, Steve DiGiorgio, I had the pleasure of meeting Testament not so long ago when they were here in Australia. They Steve DiGiorgio, just such a lovely guy. I managed to have a small chat with him, and he was just a really nice guy. I got the band to sign my Flying V sitting over there behind me. Don't know if you can see it, but it's Oh,
I spotted a BC
find
Rich,
it.
a BC
There it
Rich
is.
BC corner.
No, no, no. No, no, I'll take you there. Here we go. Oh, there it is.
Oh yeah, it's in front of it. Yeah, sorry, the light. Oh, nice. Is that a Dean or a Washburn one? Is it?
It's a Dean. So but yeah, we got all the. It's hard to sort of show you because I can't see what I'm showing you.
Oh,
Um,
amazing.
but the artwork on it was just brilliant, and to have it's a signature Eric Peterson, and to
Oh,
have
legend.
the opportunity for him to sign it, and as well as the rest of the band, obviously was just a dream come true. Again, they were my sort of Megadeth and Testament. You put those two together, and they were my heroes growing up. So I've met both of them now, so it's good. And I had David Ellefson renew my vows for my 25th wedding anniversary last year. Amazing.
Oh, that's glorious. We've got about 2 minutes left before this closed down, so we could probably finish that off by chatting about Testament and Megadeth. What I love about those two bands, given that you just sort of mentioned them, is that Testament to me have also been so consistent in the recent albums of actually still
Mm.
churning out really good stuff. That
Yeah,
is, I mean, it's almost impossible. Like, let's just to match the practice what you preach or New Order or legacy type stuff because they mean so much to people who grew up on them. But I honestly think from like even the Gathering, but Formation down, well, yeah, the Gathering onwards, from Formation of Damnation, all those Andy
really.
Sneap produced albums, fantastic. There's hardly a dud. And Megadeth, I think a few of their albums from the last 20 years, occasionally you get a cracker in there. Like maybe three of them, I think, especially I really like, but they're a little bit more like you're rolling the dice. And
Yeah.
1 to 6, there's one or two could be a cracker, two or three could be like, yeah, and then five or sorry, three or four cracker, and then 5 or 6, it's like, well, we don't need Super Collider. But there's
No.
always the hope of there being something brilliant, which,
Um, yeah.
uh, love them.
Anthrax is
But
another one of those bands that have just been churning out great music, fantastic music.
for sure, and add that to another list of people that I would love to work with. Because again, Anthrax as well, just one of my favorites.
They've just
And
recorded as well. Oh,
oh, there's such a high expectation though, because like it's so difficult for bands to have done 20 albums and still pump out their best material. So yeah,
incredible.
whether instruments and art came about at the same time,
Yeah.
because as I briefly explained off camera for 1 minute, I was playing guitar since the late 90s. Uh, yeah, I think I always wanted to play guitar, but I guess thinking about this, I was always into art, even as a young kid, and then I took up guitar about 15. And then once I took up guitar, completely stopped drawing for however many years because I'd basically every second that I would get available, I'd just be playing guitar if I could. And then you get into bands, and then I really picked up art again in the very early 2000s when either local, like your band needs a logo, your band needs a crappy album cover or EP cover or demo cover or whatever. So I'd do that, and then local artists, local bands, should I say, would ask you for a logo or something, and I'd help out with a logo here or there. So again, it's a bit of a chicken and an egg one. And I think they're kind of independent. But what I would say is I directly have my career in art to thank for the fact that I had a lesser career in the music industry by being in bands, being in a touring band, because that's what got me into that world. And I got super obsessed by audio engineering and recording in the mid 2000s, and you record your own band. And I was on the Andy Sneap forum, which was a legendary ultimate
Wow.
metal forum. I met so many people on that who knew so many things, and I was just there to learn how to like record using Pro Tools and all of that sort of stuff. From my own band's point of view, but I had nothing to necessarily offer the brighter audio engineering minds from an audio engineering point of view. So I just do stupid photoshops of Metallica and art things just on my lunch break at work to amuse people. And this, we're talking in the mid to late 90s, and this is, more humor for that era. But I came up with Metaliban, which was just Metallica photoshopped as the Taliban, and a Metallica parody called Mastered by Muppets, which was a sort of parody about the loudness war from Death Magnetic. And
Wow.
then everyone from the Andy Sneap forum got on board and sort of chipped in. And then you kind of get to know other producers and mixers. And then all of a sudden you find yourself doing art. And I did so again, sorry, I'm taking a short story and making it way longer.
No,
In
no,
about 20, yeah, in about 2010, Andy Sneap himself on his said, "Can somebody put me in contact with Dan? I'm doing this album for the band Hell, who are like an 80s band that he resurrected, replacing the singer guitar player who died." And he's like, "We need our album artwork." And this was coming out on Nuclear Blast. So I basically went from having not done anything significant really art-wise, as opposed to like a few silly, almost memes, I guess, and Photoshops on an internet forum, to being asked to work for like one of my all-time musical heroes on a Nuclear Blast major release. And that was my kind of effective gateway into transitioning from playing in bands, mixing local bands records in my home bedroom studio, to going, well, I'll work for other bands, because he got me jobs with Accept, and then I got to meet guys, producers like Scott Atkins, who ended up getting me like jobs for Cradle of Filth off the back of that. And as soon as you work with a few bands in that ilk, it's a lot easier to pick up work. So
yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of rambling sort of process of how I kind of transition from one into the other.
Wow, that's amazing, kind of mind-blowing, really, isn't it? You go from one extreme to the next.
Oh, it's just dominoes falling in a really funny way. And so
Yeah.
many people used to say to me when I was on my list, like, how do you have time to do this on your lunch break? Why are you wasting your time doing these silly Photoshops? Like, well, firstly, it's not a waste of time. It amuses me. And then 10 years down the line, it's like, well, look at that. Like, stupid, dumb
Exactly.
Photoshop turned into a full-time dream career. So I kind of, the takeaway from that is, if you just do stuff that you love, it doesn't matter how dumb it is. If you just enjoy it, it'll speak to like-minded people and something will come out of it. And even if nothing does, well, you've enjoyed the process. So
Yeah,
that's
absolutely. And this is why I wanted to kind of speak to you today, about your art. And I mean, obviously, you've done album covers, posters, t-shirts, the lot. Is there anything that you haven't done that you think you would like to have a bit of a crack at? I mean, you're obviously not big on landscapes or anything like that, or
well, I mean, if not actually doing your typical landscape in a go and paint a field or the
yeah,
sea. So, but I love the surreal kind of landscapes from the 70s sci-fi fantasy artists like Roger Dean and Bruce Pennington and David Hardy and guys like that. And some of my covers, I mean, you might not have seen too many of them, but I've probably done about three or four landscape style covers that, don't have buildings, don't have people, don't have monsters. But I mean, my love for art, it's almost like I don't like art. I love metal art. And sure, there is other art that exists that I love, but kind of a painting for painting's sake doesn't move me. Whereas a painting for a movie poster, or a painting for a fantasy book or a computer game or some media that I enjoy, it's always way more appealing to me than like just a painting. So I've got no interest in doing like painting someone's portrait or painting a real landscape. But if I could paint people or landscapes that get featured on an album cover, then that's what I would choose to do. Because like my album covers especially is my main thing that I love, and that's because that's what I got into metal with. It's like it's the
yeah.
double win. It's the music and it's the art at the same time.
It's huge. What are your thoughts on AI coming into art and all that nowadays? There seems to be, I guess, a little bit of conjecture around it. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, we could probably do 4 hours on just AI because it's quite a problematic thing. I'm I am against it in the way that it is being used. I'm not necessarily against AI in general if it is a tool to aid humans and help people with a requisite level of skill rather than replace them. So, like, to take this out of the art world, and I think I can probably answer this quite honestly because AI, fortunately, has not affected my workload at all. If anything, I've been busier since AI has become a thing than I ever was before. But
Yep.
for example, if you had somebody doing your accounts and they needed help from chat GPT or whatever to help them with their spreadsheet formulas. And it is an accountant using this to speed up their process that saves you money, saves them time. That is a good thing. If you had some regular person who's got no background in accounts, who goes, well, I'll just earn a quick buck by doing somebody's accounts by pressing a button and having it turned over. To me, that is dangerous. And I think
Mm.
that is similar to the way we are with art, in the sense that I think if people use AI, like this is maybe sort of counter to what a lot of my artist friends would say, but if somebody comes to me and says they can't convey their thoughts, but they want something like this, just as a rough idea, and they do a quick AI thing, and they still give you creative control rather than go, no, just repaint that. I am okay with that as an idea because they're just using it to convey a thoughts like language. If
Yeah.
they're saying, here's an AI thing, could you just paint over that or paint it exactly like that? Well, it's like, well, no, because that's removing the creative
Yeah.
enjoyment. But the problem is I think there's no excuse for big bands with budgets. There's just no excuse at all to use AI in their stuff. I think it's so lazy, and artists don't caught that. Well, I mean, you're saving a few $100 on a t-shirt, or a few hundred, or even a grand on an album cover or something like that. That's for bands who spent 20, 30, 40 grand recording and more on all the marketing thing. It's such the tiniest fraction of a price that it's kind of inexcusable. But I get why smaller bands would do it. I just don't really like it. And if anyone does do it, it's almost instantly, obviously AI, and it doesn't sing to me at all. There's this sort of degree of plastic soulness of it. And what it's got is it's got the opposite of somewhere in time, which gets better the more you look at it. Whereas AI, it's like this glossy thing that from a distance, as a thumbnail, you go, wow, that's incredible. And then you look at it and go, it doesn't make sense. Why would you have done that? It just looks a little bit shit. And it is getting better, but the problem is it's just what I think folk don't realize is half the fun about creating a full package is collaborating with people, other artists. Like if you write a song with somebody, it's always much more fun if you get the drummer to put in his own like drum fills, or the bass player to play, rather than if you say to him, you stick exactly to my thing on the root notes, and the drummer play this fill that I've programmed in like drum. It's never as fun as if you give people a little bit more free reign to do what they're good at. And I think it's exactly the same with artists. And
Yeah.
all the better covers are when people have, people being allowed to do what they're good at versus, the singer going, well, we need an album cover, press a couple of buttons, and here you go. It's just the
Yeah.
same crap AI cover that everyone else has. So
It's a bit of a bullshit way to do it, isn't it? Like you say, it takes the creativity out of it and takes the artistry out of it, really.
think so. Exactly. You're right. It takes the creativity, it takes the artistry, and it takes the journey out of it. Like the
Yeah.
whole fun about doing anything is like if somebody said, like, if you practice an instrument or practice an art, it doesn't matter what it is, it's the getting better that is the thing that is satisfying. Whereas if you just complete it and you with no work, you could be the best, you could be John Petrucci, you could be the best guitar player in the world or something.
Yeah.
The, I think you could take no satisfaction. You just go, well, I've done that now. What is there? It's almost like being handed a computer game that's been completed so you can tell everyone you completed it. It's like, what's the point? It's like you don't play computer games so you can say you've completed it. You like going on that journey of getting better and leveling up and seeing improvement in yourself. And I think that people who are happy and have got satisfaction in their life, it's not the billionaires of this world who can buy everything and have got everything and nothing means anymore because
Yeah.
you're just looking at stuff that doesn't exist. It's the Hatebreed lyric or Hatebreed album. It's like satisfaction is the death of desire. And I think when you've just got something right on your plate that's been handed to you with no work for it, you've got nothing to work for and no drive to get up and do it. And certainly that's what pushes me to try and be better and improve is the journey that you go on creating stuff and seeing 800 hours worth of art, and it's could be better, and going, well, let's try and make the next one better. That's the thing that you get up for in the morning that kind of is a fulfilling life as opposed to pressing a button, done,
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's more of a life thing, isn't it? Like, to me, if I was going to write a review, I would just be shattered if I could just press a button and the review was done instead of actually listening to the music and getting my thoughts down on paper and going through and editing and all that sort of thing. Everything that comes with it, it just takes the life out of it.
Absolutely. And then it would ask, well, why did you even get into it in the first point of view, it's what to write the reviews, not to have the finished product.
Yeah,
It's the enjoyment of doing it. And but
absolutely.
I think there is two sort of types of people in the world. It's the ones that get a satisfaction from working something and improving themselves and knowing you need even harder work to get to those next levels,
Mhm.
versus people that just are kind of lazy and apathetic and just want it for free and want it now. You don't want to save up for something with your hard-earned money and buy it and then get better. You just, well, I want this right now, and that's me. I'm happy with it. And I know there's a scale, but I definitely think that, on the one hand, you'll have people that are just happy to have, here's a free album cover that looks good. I don't want to work for it or pay for it or anything like that. Just have it here and now. And they'll take the AI route, really,
Yeah,
because you don't save that much money. But yeah, I can't understand. But hey
yeah.
ho.
I don't get it myself. It's just something that it's a bit of a head scratcher for me. Speaking of working with other artists, is there anyone that you would do a collab with if you had the chance to?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've one of the best things for me it was about 4 years ago, maybe. Oh no, it's longer than that actually. My friend Dusty Peterson, who's a really good artist himself, he hit, and I was a fan of his work. He'd worked with 6 Feet Under and Bloodbath and a bunch of other bands. He
Sweet.
randomly added me on Facebook, and I realized that I just looked up to him as an artist who I'd heard of, rather than a kind of a normal person like myself who just exists and is doing a job.
Yeah.
And he was super friendly, and he opened up my world to the community of other artists. So there's so many. I'm not going to bother naming them all because there's literally dozens and dozens of really good metal artists working in the metal industry that I've
Yeah.
become friends with. But I definitely wouldn't say, I don't want to say who I would collaborate with, because that would probably leave out, say, ones that I wouldn't, which is not out of any choice. It's just more of, artistic styles. But there's definitely loads of guys that I am probably on a peer level with that I'd happily collaborate with if the um, opportunity ever arose or was ever asked to. But I think the ones who are in a similar position to me, we're always so busy with our own commissions for other bands that we don't have free time. You have to grind to do this to be a proper career. Like there's plenty of people I know who are great artists who can just do an album cover every 4 or 6 months because they've got a proper job
Yeah.
that can pay the bills. But if you're doing this as a kind of a job artist, you have to really work hard.
Yeah.
There isn't the time to do sort of fun kind of collab stuff. Like in an ideal world, put 48 hours in the day, 24 of them, you have to do fun stuff. And I'd be hitting up all my artist friends and going, hey, let's just do a sort of fun piece. So yeah, again, long story short, I definitely wouldn't say no. I can't necessarily see it being immediately on the cards, but that's purely on a time thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe need to come and commission us, like any of the bands that we've collaboratively worked with. If they come and say, "Hey, what would be great is if you get you two to do this," then mix up on it. I mean, probably the closest thing that I've done is, for example, James Balsamo is a friend of mine as well. We both work with Pull the Plug patches, the
Oh no,
patch.
yeah. Yeah.
So we've worked with each other's characters as well, and it's great when you see other artists. For example, I designed the character Patchy, the main mascot for Pull the Plug patches, because I was kind
Oh,
of being the full first artist or one of them to work with them. But then I see guys like Mario Lopez, who's a phenomenal artist. I see the likes of him and Jason Barnett using my kind of character design. So it's not a collab, but at the same time, it's really cool seeing other people work with my designs. And I've worked with James's character for the Plughead character within for Pull the Plug. So it's not a collab, but it's sort of working with other artists adjacently, I
yeah.
suppose.
How do you feel about being on that same level, like them being your peers? It probably took a long time for you to get to that level where you could call these other artists your peers. How does that make you feel, like after all the hard work?
Yeah, really good. Well, I almost view it in terms of different generations. There's the kind of classic artists that I grew up with, the Dan Seagraves and Andres Marshall, Ed Repka type character, Derek Riggs type characters, who are all 15, 20 years older than me, that sort of existed in a different age. But so I've never been in touch with any of those guys, kind of my absolute heroes. But as far as the next crop of stuff, in the nicest way possible, I admire all these artists, but they're not my heroes because an adult doing this myself when at the same age as they were, because they're all in, they're late, they're probably, some of them are younger than me. They're all probably early 30s to 40s. So I find them more of a huge influence and an inspiration as opposed to people whose work that I've maybe Dusty aside, because, he'd done a few covers I've seen before, but I feel like a lot of us have grown together and you just sort of see each other's work pop up on Instagram and
Yeah.
you see a great cover and go, oh, I wonder who did that. And then you see another one in the same style and go, okay, that's that guy. And then you sort of have a little bit of a chat, a bit of a back and forth. But everyone seems to be really, really friendly. And I really need to give a massive shout out to Lee, who does the heavy music art channel, where a couple of years ago, I actually had myself an idea for myself. If I have free time, I'd love to do an art-based podcast because
Yeah.
I don't see it existing. And then literally a couple of weeks later, Lee hit me up and was like, "Oh, would you like to be on my art podcast?" And that was in its infancy, but he's gone from strength to strength and he's had so many good people on. But not only has he had people on, his stuff is really interesting. It gives the artists a voice and a platform, but connects so many of us together as well. So it's always long stuff, and I think you have to have a big interest in art or the artists involved to watch those videos and get 2 hours or 2 hours, 2.5 hours of people talking about their own work. But I personally absolutely love what he's done. And I think, give it a couple more years, he'll probably be, if he's not already, widely recognized as doing something really good
Yeah.
for the artist community.
Yeah, you don't often see it, do you? I mean, it's a travesty in a lot of ways because, like I say, it's the chicken and the egg thing. I mean, you always see the cover first. You see the cover before you hear the music, and the cover should tell you somewhat what is inside the cover, like what's on the album, I guess, in a lot of ways. Yeah, yeah. There's not really a
Well,
question there. It's more of I guess, a
yeah.
statement. Mhm.
I was trying to think where I was going to go with that. I had a point. I think one of the reasons is, and if I'm gonna answer a question you didn't ask here, but if it's why artists aren't more widely recognized by the public, sort of similar to producers, as in, people, a lot of people, probably yourself, myself, we're super into the music and you're into the art, excuse me, and you're into the production. But because we're like that, it doesn't necessarily mean that 99% of music lovers are. And I think we all assume that if we're something that we're into, guitar gear, production, art, metal, everyone else has that same level of obsession. But I think the simple fact is that most people, if you go to any music festival, you'll sort of find this, that it's not a bunch of either like hipster elitists or nerds like kind of yourself who are like obsessed by it. It's just people that kind of like it.
Yeah.
And those aren't the people that go home, they buy, they don't go home, buy a CD, scour every lyric, read the thanks list, look who produced it, look which other matching CDs had that producing it, see who the artist is. But there's the ones of, and I'll include you in the sort of, given that you asked me to be here, I'll include you in the same bracket as me. But there is those who do. But
Yeah.
I think in the grand scheme of things, we're the minority. And this is why I can drop the biggest names in art, like the Dan Seagraves, Ed Repkas, Michael Whelans of this world. And most people who like metal have no idea who you're talking about. The people who are obsessed with it and like they're kind of really into the weeds and the nerds and the nerdy bits and the details, they do. But by and large, these guys should be the household of household names, but
Yeah.
they're not the people because those folk they've heard of Metallica and Machine Head and Mastodon and Slipknot, and there's nothing wrong with having just heard the bands and existing in that space because maybe they've got other interests. Maybe they love golf, and every single one of their golf clubs is like ranked alphabetically and by size. So, they might have their other own nerdy interests. But it's definitely one of the sort of failures of myself is to assume that everyone who's kind of vaguely into the same things that I'm into is into it into the same nth degree of like detail, and that's just not the way.
No, I get it. When I was a teenager growing up, I had my bedroom walls absolutely smothered and covered with Iron Maiden posters, like new movie posters and things like that. Were you the same? Did you have the posters growing up and all that?
Yeah, I mean, sadly, in terms of an era, you're about 10 years older than myself. So when I was the age of doing that, it was a very different era. So it was, Maiden and Terminator and all of that, when you're 12, 14, 15, whatever, even 10, that wasn't popular. So all of my walls were filled with bands like even the likes of Typo Negative, who I was never even a massive fan of growing up because you'd buy Metal Hammer or Kerrang, and there'd be the pullout in the middle was Cold Chamber or Typo Negative or I'm not, I was not, I don't want to say
Pantera.
yeah, exactly. Something like that at the time.
Yeah,
I mean, even Pantera were kind of like, okay, by like nice. I started buying magazines properly in 96, but even the likes of Pantera were just on their way out post Southern Trendkill.
yeah,
So the bands that I actually grew up loving, again, Megadeth and Metallica and stuff, and Biohazard and what have you, they weren't quite as prominently featured. But yes, I did. My bedroom walls were covered in like literally wall to wall in posters. They were just ones of people who came out 10 years after the stuff that I wish it had. Because
yeah.
if I could have filled it with Iron Maiden and, I bought a few Metallica posters from the actual shops, at HMV or Virgin Megastore or whatever the music stores were. But by and large, they were the free stuff that you got from a Metal Hammer, which was a case of, well, I'm limited to whatever comes out this month or this week.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah. I was sorry, keep going.
I was going to say, I did, however, paint the Halloween logo on my bedroom wall because for whatever reason, my mum said, here's some acrylic paints or whatever. Go and paint something on your own bedroom wall. Nice. The Halloween logo for whatever reason, which I know would have come out, it would have been 1998 because Better Than Raw came out then, which was an album I kind of loved for whatever reason. But yeah, sorry, to interrupt. That was the last point I was
Oh
going to
no,
make
no,
on that.
no, no! I forgot my question now. Damn, I was going to say, good Lord, no. Oh, that's right. It was my uncle who would give me all these posters. He was an accountant for some poster store or a news agency or something like that, and they would just give him these posters, and they would end up on my wall. So I ended up having just about every Iron Maiden poster you could think of, and to go back. I think I would have gone back and rolled those up very, very carefully and put them away somewhere very, very temperate, where I could have kept them and rolled them out to into the room in here. They would have been fantastic. I had everything from Phantom of the Opera to Aces High, and any single you could think of, Flight of Icarus, all those all those posters. They were just everywhere. I loved them.
It
My
was
mum
so
not
good.
so much.
Yeah, yeah. See, this is it. Like, my mum and dad were always very encouraging of me having this an outlet, and I think even before I was into Maiden, I got an Iron Maiden t-shirt when I was about 8 years old with the motorcycle one saying "Don't walk." I don't know if you can picture that one. It's Eddie front on a motorbike. Can't remember what it was actually used for. Probably like a sort of a live album t-shirt or something like that. But I'll send it to you afterwards. But I had that when I was about 8 years old. So I was always allowed like Eddie in that. But you're right. I was like this with my old t-shirts as well. I had a bunch of like faded old, like the, the Fear of the Dark live t-shirt and
Yeah.
Slayer and Metallica t-shirt. I'm like, well, I've grown out of that now, or I'll bin that. And now it's like, no, because I would still fit into the baggy clothes that I bought when I was 10 and 11 years old. Like well, I'm wearing this one that I did, but I had the original Roots t-shirt as well that, by the age of 16 or something, I was like, well, that doesn't fit anymore. I've had that for years. Bin. It's like, I'd do anything to have an original Roots or, other Sepultura shirts if I could, but you don't thinking of it like that. I binned all my old cassette and videotapes as well. Like I used to have
Yeah.
just like, well, this is no use for me now because there's no cassettes anymore. Because I didn't think that in 30 years' time or 25 years' time, you know, cassettes would be popular again.
No, of
Because
course not.
I bought them all on CD. These have no value anymore. What an idiot. Just put them in the bin. It's like about 40 cassettes, all my Metallica ones, all my Metallica VHSs.
Oh.
And what an idiot. Like, honestly, it's
I
so
think
stupid.
I actually found a couple of my videos, my old ones, a couple of Skid Row ones, I Say Can You Scream and the No Frills video as well, and Pantera one, shit, I can't remember which one it was.
Those Hell ones, is it that one? They did like three videos, the Pantera, the
Yeah,
home record.
yeah,
Yeah.
Watch It Go and
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the third one, I think. I end up finding just these little things that I love. You find from the past, and somehow that you've managed to keep hold of them all of these years. It's like if I had my Star Wars figures back, I'd be pretty pumped.
Yeah. And rich.
Yes, yeah, yeah, and the Masters of the Universe, anything from back in the 80s now is back in fashion.
You're not buying it at the time to think, well, that's going to be a collectible one day or one value. You're buying it because it's a toy or it's an item that you actually want to use. And obviously, you get a lot of enjoyment at the end. And I'm like that with Lego. Like, we've bought, now that my kids are like 3.5, well, nearly 4 and 7, and they're obsessed by Lego, as much as I was for the first 15 years of my life. But you buy all these sets. And now I'm thinking, man, if I just bought these but packaged them up, they'll be worth a fortune in the end. But it's like, yeah, but, or I could just have 20 years of use out of them now with the kids and they're great fun. So all the boxes, keep the instructions, but the boxes get discarded. And you know that you're burning future money, but it's for like, well, you're not buying Lego now to like, as a sort of like gold to invest in. You're buying it as a toy to play with. So, and I think like, VHSs and tapes and all and posters were like that at the time. You're putting it up to put on your wall, and then a time comes, it served its purpose, and you
Yeah.
think you don't know that you're going to enjoy it again 20 years later. But
No, I took a shovel to a few of my Star Wars characters. I think I don't know, must have had the shits up one day and just, and down they went, lost their heads and arms and all that sort of thing. I think more nowadays, looking at things to go on your wall. I mean, I've got a fair few things just sort of hanging off my wall. It's all the things that you would gather, going to shows, meeting the bands, stuff like that. I mean, I get my walking sticks signed. I
right.
have to buy a new walking stick every time I bloody go and meet a band now. I've got four of them hanging on the wall just there, just for shits and giggles. I just wanted to get something weird signed. And the first time I asked anyone to do that was Zach Wild. He was Pantera were down here for a Knot Fest, and I was lucky enough to win a spot to meet him. And yeah, he was the first one that got it done. And since then, I've just been pushing on. And every time I
Not
meet a band, yeah, I just get them signed. Just
well, and yeah, it starts something. That's the problem with either collecting or coming up with an idea. The first one's fine, but then when you do two of anything, you're like, oh no, that's a collection, and the pro got to keep doing it. So yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, you're dead right. I mean, if I go into my son's bedroom, which is just next door here, I'm walking into a collection of pop vinyls and Lego and all the stuff that he's got now. I hope that he keeps. I'm urging him to keep it for his kids, and he's 22 now, so and my girls are 19. Anything that they get nowadays, I do urge them to keep. I've still got big Angry Birds heads that you used to be able to get out of the skill testers. Still got a bunch of them just sitting in the cupboard, and some Thomas stuff that my son used to have when he was a kid. It's stuff like that that it ends up coming back,
Yeah,
somehow. And I think metal itself kind of went through a bit of a patch where it wasn't like the 80s. I think through the 90s and 2000s there was a bit of a reshuffle, I guess, of what sort of metal was important. I think nowadays, you have a look at, say, death metal bands that are coming out now, like your Revocations, your Allegiance, the bands like that, Rivers of Nile, and you could go on all day. They are the bands that really sort of hit home nowadays. I met a Legion not so long ago. I've met Revocation. If I can meet a band, I'll meet them. It's, if they come to town, I'm going to spend the extra few bucks to say hello and get them to sign something, a drum head or a fucking photo or whatever, just something.
amazing. Yeah, and I need to go back to it and listen to it. I forgot that new Legion album came out because I spun it a couple of times when it came out. It was great because I was a big fan of uh, probably their previous two albums as well, actually. But then when I sort of sit down and go, what will I listen to that's a new album this year? My mind goes blank. And especially
Yeah.
because I'm always listening to so much new music. But yeah, I need to go back to that one. It's a great album. And then the Revocation new one is out as well.
They've
Just
got
came
a new
out
one coming out very, very soon. Yeah.
really soon. Yeah,
Yeah. The most recent Legion one had Ezra back.
that's
Um,
right.
yeah, yeah. But I loved Damn Them, like the one before, and yeah, the few before that, they were just fantastic. But again, they were one of those bands that I saw the cover for. I think it was their first full album, and I was like, should I, shouldn't I? And I didn't for a long time, and then I thought, no, fuck it, I'll give it a try, and I ended up absolutely loving it. And it's just one of those things, a cover can either sell an album or it can delay your buying of that album. And that's how I see art as being so important in metal.
Well, you're spot on. And a band that you mentioned a minute ago, Rivers of Nile, they are a good example of when, like, I didn't check out Allegiant because of their art. Obviously, I think my brother just recommended them however many years ago.
Mhm.
But when Where Owls Know My Name came out, because they've obviously had the Dan Seagrave stuff. Love Seagrave. He's one of my all-time heroes.
Yeah.
That Owls album is genuine. It's probably one of the last albums from the last. It's one of my favorite albums ever that has come out quite recently, and a little bit of that is because of the full package to sort of tear it back to art again. It's like because the music is all incredible, but the album artwork is phenomenal as well, and
I've got
it's
that
that
t-shirt. Oh,
yeah,
that's
it is.
great. It really is. We don't have that much longer left. It looks like we've only got a couple of minutes. Now, is there anything, where can people find you? Where can they find you if they need stuff done?
I mean, Dan Goldsworthy art on Facebook's probably good, and just Dan maybe underscore Goldsworthy at Instagram. I think probably. I don't have a website because I've been meaning to do it for ages. Never found the time, but I'm pretty. It's not the most common name. So if you just search for Dan Goldsworthy art, I'll come up. Yeah, or search for some of the bands that you like that I've possibly worked with, and you can find it sort of through there. But yeah,
Yeah, no worries. No, it's been an absolute honor and pleasure speaking with you, Dan. I have to get in contact with you again to figure out a way that I can get that Coffin Feeder album cover into a poster so that I can put it on my wall. Like, I just want to sit there and just stare at it for a couple of hours and pick out all the stuff.
well, I've got A1 ones of Over the Top, and I think I probably should do the one with the Seagal Terminator one soon. But I do have some, so I'm sure I can sort of, yeah, find a way of making one go over your way. And I'll try and get some. I'll speak to Sven and see if I can get some of the Big Trouble ones printed up as well. But
Well,
yeah,
we,
and anytime, man, feel
That'd
free to
be
hit me up.
fantastic. Thank you. And we've actually got a boarded coming down for a festival next year, a boarded and Archspire coming to the same festival, Froth and Fury. So, yeah,
Ported are lovely guys. That's not to say that Archspire aren't. I've spoken to the Archspire guys through email, and they're great as well. But like, I've met the Ported guys, and they're all absolutely wonderful human beings. So yeah,
yeah,
if you get a chance and say hello, please do from my point of view as well.
I absolutely will. Without doubt. Without doubt. Well, Dan, it's been an absolute pleasure. I can't think of anything I'd rather do on a Tuesday night when it's pissing down with rain outside than have a chat with someone like yourself. So, thank you so much for taking the time.
It's been a pleasure, and thanks ever so much for having me on. It's been really nice to chat to you and catch up.
No, it's been great. I'm sure I'll see you again
Yeah,
sometime.
yeah, absolutely. Great.
That'd be
Cheers,
great.
mate.
All right. Thanks so much, Dan. Cheers. Thank you.